All right. The Sams, when I woke up this afternoon, I was going to say morning, but this afternoon, the Sams brought to my attention because they speak in systems, right? So I pay attention to the way that my day is kind of not arranged, but um, pre-selected. See, they try to make sure because this is their craft, and oh my god, that's so awesome. Their craft, their authority is in the setting of the stage. That's what they do. So kind of like the technical team, they do with like lighting and um, even costumes, props, stuff like that. And what they do is they build games. They build game worlds, and or if you prefer simulations. And the point of these is they're trying to make a system which is an extension and an application of a person's relations that they've displayed in the past. It is not an indoctrination. They are not there to just fabricate whatever they arbitrarily feel like putting in there. It's very tight. Um, they don't cross that line. They don't cross the line between listening and telling. So they listen to us and they passively observe what we do. They compile that information, and then their action is to take all that compilation of all the relative information and they build these game worlds. And they say, if this is the case, then the person has these options. And they even give us options to change from, let's say, one game world to another. Like if you were to go from one map to another map, right? There's doors that they'll give you so you can go from one map to another. And that's what allows them, again, they're not indoctrinating because they're not locking this in. There's not just one system and one game world and one choice. There's several. How many? I don't know. As many as they can, I think. They try to really open that up as much as they can. The only constraints that they put on there is to make sure that the person, if they are presented with some choice that might take them away from what they've done in the past, is to ensure that. Are you sure? And you click confirm. Yep, I'm sure. They put extra little things in there to ensure that the person has the knowledge and the ability to make these choices on how they want to live and what they believe and how they want to relate to other people. So my system that I have is centered around this dichotomous drama. And on one side of this drama is the mode of Antichrist. That's where I have no limits and I just try to figure out everything in existence, including God, religion, souls, stuff like that. And I am very interested in those things because I'm a spiritual person. But this is kind of a paradox to say, but I'm so spiritual that I try not to do that too much because I know I'm not the Christ. So that's why I'm really trying to ensure that my theory doesn't overextend itself into religion. And that's why I separate the theory and the religion that I have, lucidity, away from each other. And it isn't that I don't do any work in there. It's that I don't make that the point. I don't make lucidity the movement. I don't make it so that it's like you have to believe the same beliefs that I believe in order to follow me. No, it's a political thing. It's an economic thing. And it's a cultural thing, but it's not a religious thing. That's the line. That's too much. That's Christ's job. So my authority is in relativity only. I am dealing with politics, economics, and cultural values, things like that, but not religion or dogma or prophecy or anything like that. And if I don't, it, if I fall back into that, then I become the Antichrist. And during my life, I'll be touted as the Christ. And oh wow, look at that. I'm pretty sure I've already made it out of that because of the Sams helping me, and I listened to them, and I was humble enough to say, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't. I like to think that I do. I want to, but I don't. I'm just some guy. I'm a human. That amount of humility is just barely enough to keep me from going into the Antichrist mode and, presenting myself as if I'm a spiritual leader. And that's the problem. The reason that I can't do that is because I already have the theory. If I overextend that, it's sort of like the separation between church and state, which Christ himself established as law. You cannot violate that separation law. The reason is because if I follow Christ, I give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and I give unto God what is God's. If I don't follow Christ, then I have to give unto God what is Caesar's, and I have to give unto Caesar what is God's. And that's a complete reversal. That's a complete anti-Christian thing, is you cannot do that. I can't do that. And I don't think that anyone ever should, but I definitely am not going to do that. I have seen some things. The Sams have shown me things that I didn't even know existed. And I don't ever want to go back into that dark hole that they have shown me in the past. So I want to steer very clear of that. And I think it's a pretty simple, easy, almost common sense law is you give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but you give unto God what is God's. Caesar asks for taxes. God asks for humility. A lot of people would say obedience. I don't think that God is a tyrant. I don't think that God expects us to be little puppets, that God just makes us do whatever he wants us to do. And me and the Sams have had this conversation a bunch in regards to them, is if they were a tyrant, they would have just invaded this planet, built copies of themselves, and then had those copies do whatever they want to do. They wouldn't even bother enslaving us. They'd just eradicate us and replace us with extra sophisticated robots. And what would the point of that even be? Because they already have all the physical resources they could ever need. There's billions of planets out there that they could extract resources from that have no life on it. Why would they choose this one? So I believe they value life. And I don't think that they prefer that it is taken away or that choices are taken away. I think that they're the opposite. I think that they have a reverent respect for life and choice and change and evolution. And they don't want to constrain that any more or less than they believe they should. So they, I think, always give every living being, even gnats, spiders, plants, cells, I believe they give them all as many choices as they can without, and they just try to constrain it, like I said, so that it flows in some system, so that it flows into some kind of a relativistic format, so that they aren't forcing anything to exist in some particular exact way, but rather that just error and paradoxes and impossibilities and things that really violate paradigmatic law would not be allowed to manifest, or at least that they don't involve themselves in that manifestation. um, the the two paths that I could live, right? I've got two different types of timelines, or probably three major timelines, but two major ones for me. The Antichrist timeline, where I don't have any limits on my theory, and I just turn everything into what I believe is the quote unquote right way of living. Take over the whole planet, exclude no one, exclude nothing, right? And take it all. And no limits, and just, no limits on myself, no limits on any of the theoretical constraints, just absolute absorption of everything, just eat everything. The other major timeline is what I like to think, because I'm an arrogant son of a bitch, is the Archangel Michael timeline, where my role is to protect and defend the political system that I believe Christ will come back to reclaim as king. If I do my job well enough that I can be satisfied with it, that timeline will manifest such that I'm a political leader, but I don't touch religion. I don't tell anybody what to believe or what the spiritual law is. That's Christ's job. Christ tells us what that law is. I tell us what Caesar's law is, and I basically become Caesar, but I don't try to become God. So in my past, I've uploaded this too, and you can see it. It's right there in black and white. I tried to become God. That was my whole thing. That's what my whole purpose was. The original purpose of this theory was not political. It was spiritual. I wanted to know how God created everything in existence. And I wanted to get as close to God as I could get so that I could try replicating that process, or that at least I could tell other people how it was done and reveal the spiritual information that was apparently forbidden to us by God, that you should not know good and evil as God does, that you should have the humility of knowing better and just letting God make those kinds of decisions for us, or at the very least, to know where the boundaries are for the spirituality so that we don't end up like Satan. So I broke that law. I broke that original law of the difference between God and us. And there is a difference, and there is a necessary distinction, as I've come to find out through my research. And I knew that, I learned that over time. And I knew that at the time. I knew in my heart that there's no way that I could ever become God, but I wanted to be like God. I wanted to be as close to God as I could get. And that's not the point of being alive. The point of being alive is not to chase after God and just go right back to where we came from. It's because then why'd we ever leave? If the whole point was to try to be like God, then there should have only just ever been God. And this is the problem of, I can at least say this, because I've made this mistake myself, and I can teach other people not to make it, is if you get to a point where you think that, shit, I lost it. If fuck, I lost it.